Great. We have Brian and Zach on the line as well.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Friday afternoon, June 26th, and we've got a pretty full update to end the week here. We want to start by starting with a budget update, I believe, right, Olivia? So great. So the budget must be passed next week by the end of the fiscal year, which is Tuesday. It's the last day of the fiscal year. And this, as anyone who's been sort of following the process this year knows, it has been a very challenging budget year, sort of unprecedented challenges with significant amount of revenues for the coming year just disappearing. And in recent weeks, we have been making changes to the budget to really try to address the moment that we're in and this opportunity, the hopefulness of this moment, that this is a time when we can make progress on racial justice. So today we will be releasing the final budget resolutions, which are sort of, it's a lengthy resolution that accompanies the budget itself, which is a big spreadsheet. And there will be some adjustments in that spreadsheet as well from the June 15th version of the budget. One of the things that I have been doing in the couple of weeks or week and a half since June 15th is to continue the conversations with the Racial Justice Alliance, which is this organization that really has helped lead the community conversation we've been having over really since George Floyd's death about a whole range of issues, including changes, restructuring in the way we police, but much larger than that as well. The racial justice, of course, includes topics relating to our healthcare systems, housing, economic opportunity, and I've been talking with leaders within the Racial Justice Alliance about all those issues. We also, because we are a little deeper into this, giving the city council, as they work on finalizing the budget, the most sort of up-to-date projections, and the documents being released today do again give us some ability to modify those projections. We have new data in, new tax receipts in analyzing that, we now, while still expecting the year ahead to be one in which our revenues are way down, we have made an adjustment upwards of about 268,000 in revenue based on the new information we've gotten in. And we also, in recent weeks, the final reconciliation of the Burlington Telecom transaction has been completed. We had funds, a substantial amount of funds, about $500,000 that were in escrow related to that transaction for over a year. That's been resolved. And so in the end, I'm pleased to say that the city converted a situation where it looked at one point years ago that we would need to spend tens of millions of dollars more to resolve that situation. Because of the hard work of the people at Burlington Telecom, our partners, and a real turnaround with the entity and years of tough negotiation, in the end, we were able to earn back more than $7 million of the funds that had been improperly invested into BT back in the 2009 period. So that finalization also helps with the budget modestly. So you kind of sum all this up, and for those who have been following this closely, we began this process thinking that we were going to have a $10 million shortfall in terms of revenues in FY21 versus what we would normally have expected. Between all the adjustments going back to the beginning of June, some of these predate the ones that I'm mentioning here today, we've revised that down to an $8.2 million shortfall. And that helps. So what else about the budget? I continue to feel that the budget that we are putting forward accomplishes many things, really is true to the principles that we announced at the beginning of this process. So all city services are preserved. I'm not saying that you will not notice any impact on city services, certainly between COVID and just the changes that COVID forces and financial restraint and cutting back on many budget lines. There will be impacts on operations, but at the same time, fundamentally, we have preserved all city services, which was not always clear would be possible. We are not implementing the March 2020 voter-approved taxes. There was about a 5% all told tax increase that was approved by voters in March. We are not moving forward with either the Housing Trust Fund increase or the public safety increase, recognizing that many taxpayers have also been very hard hit by this pandemic and are not in a place where they're able to pay increased taxes. We are staying true to this idea that we are going to do the city's part in supporting the local economy. We're not disinvesting from the economy in the middle of an emergency. There will be no layoffs or furloughs of city staff under this budget, and we are moving forward with significant infrastructure investment, which of course creates many other jobs in the area. You will continue to see. There are some areas, as we've discussed before, that where we have to, for a variety of reasons, including COVID safety reasons, we are cutting back on certain infrastructure investments, especially those that require us to go into people's homes. But people will see millions of dollars worth of road work, side work, contracting being done. Our water, stormwater, sewer infrastructure is all getting new investment this year. There's going to be a lot of that going on. The bike path continues to have a great deal of investment. So the infrastructure investment that really has marked the last 5 years or so since the city voters approved the sustainable infrastructure plan will continue going forward. We also will be continuing to make investments in the net zero energy city climate goals that we've talked so much about. We had a whole session on that recently. I won't repeat that here, but that certainly is still in the budget. And the certainly we are positioned very much between this budget as well as the emergency allocation that was approved several months ago at the beginning of the pandemic, which is we still have significant funds left in that. We are in position to robustly respond to the pandemic and continue the kind of forceful response that has marked the city's efforts over the last 3.5 months. A new item that it was not clear until the resolution being released today that we were going to have a way through with is the budget being released today. The update now includes the 3rd ambulance housed out in the new North End moving forward in the final quarter of this year. So that is a modest delay. Like many things, COVID has created some delays here. But we will start that implementation in the final part of this year, and with that delay, we save over $200,000 from previous projections. That helps us bring a balanced budget forward here, and we appreciate. This is something that we had to negotiate with the Burlington Firefighters Association, and this is still pending final approval. But we appreciate the leadership of the Firefighters Association getting to this conceptual agreement. The budget is also going to very much respond to this moment created in the wake of the tragedy regarding George Floyd, and in the wake of the millions of protesters demonstrators who have come out and made it clear that the status quo cannot continue, that there has to be progress on racial justice. We've seen those demonstrations around the country, around the world, really, and we know that we've seen many demonstrations and activism here in Burlington as well. And it was always our plan. I made this clear going back to the State of the City on April 6th that we would have new investments in racial justice, racial equity in the FY21 budget. We were from the start, planning on, for the first time, funding a full year of this new racial equity, inclusion, and belonging position in the budget. But and a couple weeks ago, I announced an additional $300,000 minimum investment. This update today goes even further, and this update includes takes that one fund that was in the June 15th documents and expands it to two. We will have one $1 million fund dedicated exclusively to racial justice. The concepts around this fund, the idea of it, and its uses have been developed through really quite significant discussions with the Racial Justice Alliance over the last couple of weeks. The work will involve a review of all of the city's economic opportunity and racial justice programs. Many of these are federally funded programs. We want to review them, keep the ones that are working well, and potentially expand them and look at wholly new efforts. I expect the fund will result in new investments in economic opportunity and cultural empowerment, and I see a further strengthening of this new racial equity, inclusion, and belonging department being funded out of this new fund as well. In addition, if we go to the next slide, we are creating a $250,000 public safety transformation fund, and it is I see this this will allow us to move forward on a couple big things. First of all, I think we need a full operational assessment of the police department, of what we ask the police department to do, an exploration of whether we can make some changes that allow other professionals to respond to certain situations. There's a growing number of examples of those type of programs here within Burlington, with programs like the Street Outreach Program. And as we look out across the country, there are more and more successful programs that are changing the way we respond to many public safety events. We envision working with the Howard Center and exploring whole new pilots with this fund. So this fund will be used to make the assessment as well as to actually initiate some new work. I do just want to say a couple more things about policing going into the weekend in expectation of a significant debate on this on Monday as the council grapples with the budget. I think, here are my thoughts. First of all, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we live in a very safe city, very low levels of violent crime, and undoubtedly the Burlington Police Department, a very effective police department, is a big part of that record and of the quality of life that we enjoy. At the same time, I hope people understand my record over the last 5 years, in particular since 2015 and President Obama's report on 21st century policing, that I have been a mayor who has made substantial changes, big changes within our police department, and I'm open to making further big changes. I think we need to. I do think what the community and what the country wants out of policing is shifting and evolving, and we need to evolve as a city with that. And I do think in certain areas there really are alternatives to policing that can be developed. What's happening?
Olivia, is it still frozen? Okay, it's still working there. I think it's Olivia's computer.
All right. Olivia, are you still with us?
It's her computer. She just dropped off.
Okay. So, okay. So I think we've lost the PowerPoint ability then. So give me just a second here. Apologize for the technical difficulty.
I'll set up the slide. Okay. No, Moro is still working.
Guys, we're just going to pause for a sec while we try to get this going again.
Yeah,
Apologize for the technical problem. The way we do these briefings, I'm sitting here in the mayor's office, as people may have sensed. If you've been watching these briefings, Olivia, who is communications specialist here in the mayor's office, she runs the PowerPoint remotely. She's had an issue with her computer, so I'm just going to keep going. Hopefully we will get the slide deck back up in a moment, but just to finish my remarks about policing, basically, I was saying we have a record of making changes. I think we do need to make further changes, and I'm very open to that. At the same time, even as we examine this, I think we have to stay cognizant of the officers of the Burlington Police Department who put themselves at risk day in, day out to protect us. And they need to know that the community supports them. And I think we risk doing real damage to that good department that has served the city well for so long if we lose sight of that. I think we have to hold both things true at the same time. We need to continue to evolve and transform, and we need to recognize the value of the officers that we have. And so I urge my colleagues on the council, as they are kind of weighing the future of the department, that to me, it seems critical that we finish this full operational assessment, working with the Burlington Police Commission, and do that work, that hard work of analysis and standing up additional capacities before we make decisions that would change, that would be essentially structural changes to the department. And I hope that concept can be something that my colleagues on the council grapple with as they go into this next week. Again, I think I think we need to be open to change. This is a moment of change in many parts of society, including policing. As we grapple with that, though, I think we should do the hard work first before we actually make those structural changes. With that, looks like we have the PowerPoint back, and let's keep going. We now want to talk more about COVID-19. Welcome back, Olivia.
My computer crashed. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. Do we still have Brian and Zach with us?
Yes, we do.
All right, great. So it's been a week and a half since our last sort of focus on COVID-19, when we had Dr. Leffler on last week, and it has been a tough week and a half for the country. We are certainly seeing an alarming growth in the virus. new infections in many states. About approaching half the states are really seeing pretty troubling trends. Here in Vermont, we continue to have a different trajectory, to chart a different course. And it's really one that we should be proud of. And hopefully in a moment, we're going to get up here another way to see Vermont's exceptional performance. And this is one I hadn't seen until recently myself. This is the percentage of positive tests countrywide. And if your eyes are good enough to see the fine print there, Vermont and Alaska are neck and neck as the lowest positive rates in the country, way on the left side of the screen. 5% is the cutoff there in terms of the percentage of positive tests. That's between green and, if you're yellow, if you're north of 5%, green if you're less, and I think Vermont is down at about 0.5%. So at the low end of the green. We know, however, that this can change quickly, and we've experienced a little bit of that here in Vermont, in Chittenden County. If we can go to the next slide, we saw how an outbreak can really change the trajectory of the outcome. I do think actually this shows a good news story, however, in that what you see there in the two spikes is, you see on the left side of the screen the initial spike back when the epidemic was really just getting going in March and April, and that was the initial surge of cases. And really what we have there, what you have test data on, is really understates significantly the number of people who actually were positive. There was I think a CDC estimate yesterday that probably about 1/10 of the people that actually had COVID that we know about. So that, if we had accurate data for that period, I think those numbers would probably be much higher. On the right side, the spike there is related to this Winooski Burlington outbreak that began on June 4th. And I am happy to say this looked like it was going to be the case when we talked about it with Dr. Leffler last week. The basic trend has continued that that outbreak seems to be almost entirely contained. There have been some positives in recent days as a result of follow-up testing and the contact tracing. There continues to be real optimism from the state, and I think you see it in that sort of 7-day average line that this outbreak is really been reined in. And that, to me, that gives me a lot of hope that these box it in strategies that we've talked about so many times on this briefing can work. At the same time, the other message I hope everyone takes from this is how fragile this safe period is. We just need to look around at pretty much most other states, or many of the other states, and see that the virus is trending in really concerning directions. Us staying in a good place and being able to continue with the reopening is dependent on us continuing to exercise vigilance and doing the right behaviors with this virus. And I want to just repeat again, we increasingly know what the dangerous behaviors are. This is something that really wasn't clear until recent weeks, but now avoiding the 3 C's really does seem to be what it takes to keep a community safe. So again, those 3 C's are closed spaces with poor airflow, crowded places with many people, and close contact settings with face-to-face conversations. And this graphic, which again we've stolen until we can get a local one generated, we are gonna have some messaging that you'll see more of, some communication campaign around this in the coming days. This one is stolen from Japan, which has been one of the more successful countries and is a little further ahead of us with the recovery. You can see on that graphic, the lower part is really making the point that it is where the 3 different risk settings, closed spaces, crowded places, and close contact settings, when those When all three of those conditions are present, that's when you can really have these super spreader events and when there's really a high degree of risk. So I think we all just need to continue to be focused on what's critical in this area as we move forward. Brian, I think Brian Lowe, our Chief Innovation Officer, is on the line. Brian, did you want to share anything else about the 3 C's at this point? Brian, I think you're muted.
No, I think the way you described it is great, Mayor. I think we are watching Japan closely. They're a type of government that does not allow. They don't have the authority to do kind of the lockdowns that the United States does at the state level and could potentially do at a federal level. And so they've been focused on this kind of harm or risk reduction strategy, and that's where this 3 C's originates. I think it's a helpful guide.
Great. So the other thing that we have now, not just kind of better understanding of how the virus is transmitted, we also now, as opposed to back in March and April, have vastly greater testing capacity. And we did just want to give people an update on the testing that's happening here in Burlington. Because of that outbreak that started back on June 4th, the city and the state have really been working together, and I really appreciate our partners in the state. They're the ones that really have to do the heavy lifting on this. There has been a massive amount of testing taking place in the Burlington-Winooski area in recent weeks. The state has really devoted a substantial percentage of the statewide testing capacity to this area to address this outbreak. That's going to continue into next week. I think we have some times here that show the upcoming testing locations. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 9 a.m. to 3. There is both walk-up. My understanding, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess it has some clarification on here. Some of these you can either register for or walk in, where it says registration only. You do need to go onto the city website or the state website. We've got a pretty good link on the resource and recovery page where you can sign up. You can click and then sign up for it. And I say this with experience because I signed up and got tested this week myself. That is me yesterday on Riverside Avenue. And I put myself in the camp that says getting tested is not that big a deal. It's an unusual sensation. People have equated it to kind of jumping in a pool and having the water shoot up your nose. I think that's about right. I have had other people tell me that they've experienced it as much worse, but 24 hours after the fact, I'll tell you, I really didn't think it was that bad. I really encourage Burlingtonians to think about this resource. I'll tell you one of the reasons I thought I should have the experience, given that I'm talking about this testing so often. I thought I should have that firsthand experience. But I'm hoping to see my parents for the first time in the coming days, and that extra level of assurance that I'm not carrying the virus. If I see them, they're older and in a higher risk category. That's the kind of thing that this testing capacity now allows. Organizations can use it to help ensure that their frontline staff are safe as they're going through reopening periods here. My hope is that this capacity just continues to grow as long as we are grappling with this. The testing really, it has the potential to give us substantial new freedom and safety. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Bren?
Just 2 things, Mayor. I mean, I would agree with you. I did not think it was that bad. I got tested as well the week prior, and I think it's an important thing to do. I think it helps get a better understanding of what's happening in the community. The only things I'd add to the slide are that, in part because of VDH's flexibility, they're also offering testing tomorrow, Saturday, at J.J. Flynn, and they'll be offering it even beyond next week as well, to try and help make testing as accessible as possible at different hours of the day and on weekends as well at times for folks who can't get away from work to get tested.
Great. Awesome. All right, let's keep going here. A couple more virus-related initiatives. And Brian, why don't I turn this one over to you? You've been such an outstanding leader on this incredible initiative. It's every time we have you back, we've made progress with this now. Now up over 23,000 masks have been fabricated as a result of this effort between the sort of partnership between the city of Burlington that went out and bought a truckload of material way back in March, and hundreds of volunteers and some businesses in the community. It's pretty awesome, Brian, to when I was out at the test site yesterday, I saw so many people who are wearing the Burlington masks. I see them all over. I hope you're proud of what you've done with this.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. It's definitely a team effort. I know Zach Williamson is going to be on the press conference later as well and had a huge role. Gene Richards, Joan Shannon, and then the picture here is of Aaron Everts, the executive director of Lyric Theater, along with Vermont Teddy Bear, who helped us make so many of these. So, good news here. They continue to be, sought after, lower levels, lower demand now than there was at the outset. But we continue to offer them at the police department and at Fletcher Free Library. We will be partnering, I believe, with Lyric for another round late in the summer to kind of keep going and prepare for the future with them kind of proactively. But it is a good initiative, and one where if you need a mask, feel free to come by the police department or library at the times listed on that slide there, and they'll have some for you.
Excellent. We also want to give an update on the other major community effort that has launched since the virus battle began. We, about a month ago, launched the Plant for the People program. This is aimed at growing here in Burlington 100,000 pounds of fresh produce to be given to feeding Chittenden so that they can have fresh local produce over at the food shelf and in their prepared foods. And what's the latest, Brian? Where are we with this effort?
So we begin collections on Tuesday. So Tuesday, June 30th will be our first collection day. And we'll be collecting every Tuesday and Thursday throughout the summer growing season from 9:30 a.m. till noon, as well as some Saturdays. We're doing it based in part on feeding Chittenden's operating hours, but we know that there are gardeners out there who a Tuesday or Thursday collection doesn't make sense. And so we want to make sure we offer some Saturdays as well. The specifics, which are coming up on the slide here, are Tuesdays at the Intervale Center, Thursdays at Champlain School in the South End, and then Saturdays at Roosevelt Park in the Old North End. The city will take, clean, package, and transfer the produce for you. And a couple just positive updates on that. Thanks in part to the great partnership of the Intervale and the Vermont Food Bank. If we have overflow produce, more than what Feeding Chittenden can handle in a particular day, we'll be able to work with the Vermont Food Bank and the Intervale Center and make sure that fresh produce is properly and quickly distributed out to people who need it. City Market has offered to give volunteer hours to those who volunteer with us at these collection sites. We'll have an organized method of allowing people to volunteer. And we had the VFW reach out. They are very eager to join as well and help get more potatoes. And this is the phrase we use, more potatoes and tomatoes in the ground for their fellow Americans. So just positive news on this project.
Excellent. So every Tuesday and Thursday going forward the rest of the summer, you can drop off in those places, and Saturdays, some Saturdays. Okay, good. I'm impressed by the people that already have produce coming out. Ada and my effort is a long ways from yielding any deliverables here, Brian, but we'll keep, we're hopeful.
We're counting on you, Mayor. We need to get to 100,000 pounds, so every pound counts.
I'll jump in here to add, I believe that is Brian's garden pictured in this photo.
Oh,
so Brian
right.
is in on the effort as well.
Excellent. Excellent. We should have a competition amongst city staff, and I know several city councilors are making major efforts on this front as well. It would be we should have a weigh-in maybe before we're done.
We will be weighing the food. We can organize that. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Final update for today is something that's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow is our first open streets effort. This is I think, an exciting initiative to respond to the times we're in, create more outdoor spaces, which we know, again, getting back to the 3 C's, the opposite of closed-in spaces are open spaces, are places that are outdoors. We know now that virus transmission outdoors is much less frequent than indoor spaces. So we are making major sections of the public right away available to retailers and restaurants for them to bounce back from the hard hit of coronavirus over recent months. We've been doing that with expanded outdoor seating and retail areas in green belts, on sidewalks. We've been reserving parking spaces for curbside pickup. What starts tomorrow is a even more ambitious effort. It is closing whole streets down, the side streets off of Church Street for basically the whole day. Tomorrow is the first one, June 27th. We're hoping the weather allows us to enjoy at least a little bit of it. And it's going to continue for every Saturday going forward after this. And we have back with us BCA's Zach Williamson, Zach has played a huge role in so many elements of the response to the coronavirus in recent months. He's had a big role in our supported quarantine effort. Zach, what can you tell us about Open Streets?
1 second. Let's see if
There
we can
I
get.
come.
Oh,
Sorry.
great.
I just got back. No problem. Hey, can you see me? I'm not even sure.
Yes, we can, and we see you
Okay, great.
sporting one of those great BTV masks.
Yes, I've got my
And,
mask on because I'm out here on College Street. So yeah, Open Streets is starting tomorrow. This is the third arm of the initiative that was called Making Space for Restaurant and Retail Recovery. So the first two was the parklet, where different restaurants and retail could ask to use some of the parking spaces in front
I
of their
just went over the
establishments.
first two, so you can go straight to the third one.
Sorry, I was getting hooked back up. Cool. So
No
we're on
worries.
the third one, which is Open Streets. So starting tomorrow, we're going to be closing portions of College Street and Bank Street, and Center Street is included in that, as is a bit of South Champlain Street, with the specific reason of letting restaurants and retail get out into the street. We all know it's safer to be outside than it is to be inside, and our capacities are limited inside. So we are going to definitely be maintaining safe social distancing and mask wearing. But the idea is that people can be outside and support these businesses and do it with a little more confidence that we're being safe and comfortably. So right here on College Street, we'll be seeing Sweetwater's. We'll be getting out there, expanding their footprint. The Archives is going to push out in the street and be open at noon as well. Patagonia is going to join us, and My Little Cupcake down at the end of the street will be joining us. In a couple of weeks, I think Commandeer is coming on board as well. We're also going to be up on Bank Street with El Cortijo and Ken's Pizza and Captain Tom's Tiki Bar, and the Farmhouse will all be participating. And on Terry Street, we're not actually closing Terry Street, but businesses will be, there's 2 businesses that are going to be using the parking spaces in front of theirs. That's the Old Gold in the Vault. So they'll have some really great stuff out in the street as well. That's the start. And then as we move through the summer in the next couple of weeks, we'll be expanding on College Street, extending down to Pine Street, and also on Bank Street, we're going to extend to Pine Street to include some of those business down there. So I hope you all can join us. The weather has changed in our favor. It's going to be a beautiful afternoon, we think. Partial rain later in the day, but right now it's looking pretty good. And also, I know, anytime you close a street in downtown, there's concern about parking. But do know that there's going to be plenty of parking. The garages actually are extremely vacant right now. We'd love to see those, get some more cars in there. And we are doing our best while these streets, I say partial closures, because while these streets are closed, we're maintaining as much on-street parking as we can. We're doing it safely and giving as much people access as possible. That's the whole idea. So yeah, we're starting that tomorrow. It'll be every Saturday through August 28th. It's a big lift of the city. I have to thank people from Burlington City Arts, DPW, the Parks Department, CEDO, and the Church Street Marketplace, plus Burlington Police and Burlington Fire are all involved in making this happen. So pretty amazing.
Great summary there, Zach. On your point about parking, certainly anytime any parking is modified or used for anything else, we do hear concerns. I gotta say, given we see this in the numbers, even with the economy starting to bounce back, there's a lot less activity in the downtown still than there is in a typical June. So people will not, up until now, there has been no issues with people being able to find very accessible parking, even with some of the spaces roped off. Perhaps we'll get back in some ways we may at some point this summer, hopefully things will recover to the point where we actually have parking pressures. We don't now.
Yeah.
That really shouldn't hold anybody back from coming out and participating in this, this really unique event. In some ways, we're trying to kind of build on the strengths of Church Street, right? What makes Church Street such a great street is how much takes place outside in normal times. That is now really being expanded to a big chunk of the downtown, as you can see there on that map. All right, I think that's the briefing for today. Zach and Brian, why don't you stick around? We'll see if you have any questions I need help with here. And we've got Kieran in the studio here with CAX. Did you have any questions?
Yes, I did actually have a few pertaining to Burlington media at the time. So first question is, what is your reaction to the Burlington School Board's recommendation regarding that school resource officers remaining?
So
And Mayor, could you repeat the question for
Yeah.
people watching from home?
Sure. The question is about the school board meeting last night and the discussion they had about the future of the school resource officer program. For those that haven't seen the news coming out of that, it was a very, from what I could tell, it was a very divided board. I believe there was a vote 7-5 to continue with the program. So, I mean, I think we need a little time to know exactly where this discussion is going. But I mean, clearly, there's now the school board is very divided on this. It seems that there are many people within the school district that have kids, parents, to a certain degree teachers who have voiced concerns about this program. I think advocates have made a very compelling case about the problems with programs like this, at least on the national level. And now there's a real question as to whether we were having this big debate about the budget for the police department. And so, I think there's some real questions about whether this program is going forward. And I think for the school resource officers to return, there's going to have to be a new consensus around the program, which clearly doesn't exist now. So I think we're going to keep talking about it in the coming days, and we'll see where the conversation goes. But I think there's a real question about whether this program is going forward.
Understood. And how much do you plan to be involved in that discussion? Because obviously, there are multiple schools within the district, multiple counties, cities that have their own opinions on school resource officers.
Mm-hmm.
How much weight do you think your voice will carry in this discussion?
Well, we have always tried to. The reason the school resource officer program exists as it does now is a function of the city trying to be a good partner to the school district and what they want. So I think. We've been looking to them for some leadership on this issue and trying to be good partners with them, since there is clearly real mixed opinions about it within the school district. I do think the administration and the council are likely to weigh in maybe in a different way. I mean, I think if there was clarity about what the school district wanted, that might push the conversation in one direction. Since it is mixed, I think it is something that the council and the administration will be talking about as we finalize the budget.
Thank you.
Great. Olivia, I think that's all from here in the mayor's office. Are there any more questions on the line?
Great. Not so far. Reminder for members of the media who are watching, if you can let me know that you have a question by emailing me at olivia@burlingtonvt.gov. And then if you're on the Zoom, you can let me know that and I'll enable your microphone. Or if you're not on the Zoom, you can let me know what your question is in the email and then I will read it out. But while we give it another minute to see if there are any more questions from the media, there are a few coming in on Facebook that maybe we can answer. So one question is from Barbara asking, how do you feel about low student participation in the voluntary box it in strategy? I understand that parties and large social gatherings continue unabated.
So from all the data I can see, the box-it-in strategy is working very well. I think there was an article last week that asserted that there was low student participation. I don't think it's clear that that's the case. We've had almost 200 people now sign up for the city's supportive quarantine program. We know that there are at least a couple of returning students who enrolled in that program who then tested positive. We're looking to be able to publish more results from that effort soon. From everything that I've heard anecdotally and to a certain degree empirically, although I can't say we have great numbers on this, the number of students who returned from out of state after June 1 was much lower than it would have been in a normal year. So we really don't know what the denominator is in that of the number of students who actually were out of state and came back and had the quarantine. We have been responding to calls for events that violate the governor's orders on assembly size. In many cases, when we have responded, we have found that it is actually not the students or the individuals living there are not out of compliance. They are actually larger, there are people that are living together, and some of these are large houses that have many people living together. Sometimes we have had to break up, especially before the governor raised the limit. We were intervening and asking people to disband when it wasn't consistent with the rules. I guess I understand the concern, but I think here's the bottom line. We know there's very little amounts of the virus transmitting in the community right now. I think one of the reasons that is the case is because of various box-it-in efforts. So I think people, while I understand the concern and at some level share the concern when you see some of these gatherings, I think first of all, when they are outside, they are much safer than we thought at a previous period. And secondly, I think when you overlay these events happening with very low virus transmission happening in the community, that should color our reaction to it. If that starts to change, if we start to see spikes, then I will have a greater concern about some of these gatherings, and we may have to take further steps. But right now I feel like things are going about as well as one could have hoped, and in fact, better than just about any of our peer states. So we're figuring this out together. We're going to continue. We are meeting next week, I believe, with the university and Champlain College and the state about getting ready for the fall, when we expect there to be a larger number of students coming back, and there is this expectation that the fall may present conditions in which outbreaks are even more likely. So by no means saying this is all working great and our job is done. I'm saying the opposite of that. I think we have a ton of work to do together going forward, but I don't think we should view our efforts to date as failing. Great.
And I think with that, we don't have any more questions from members of the media coming in. So okay. We should be all set for today.
Excellent. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a good weekend. We'll be back on Monday. Monday will be a big day, busy city council meeting. And we'll look forward to talking to everyone then. Take care. Have a good weekend.